China Velociraptor. The Velociraptor let out a roar before jumping into the air as normal. Then, the tanned rider woman smirked as she looked down at their target. "This'll put you out of commission," she declared as her Velociraptor unleashed the usual barrage of kicks. However, each kick unleashed a shockwave that came crashing down all over, creating a huge dust cloud. The Iadrome they were facing looked around in confusion, before the woman and her Velociraptor emerged from the smoke, the blue raptor delivering a devastating slash with its feet. Many of them were shocked by this. Whoa! They must be a master of that move if they've taken it to the next level like that. Summer said, amazed. That's one strong Velociraptor, too, if its kicks can create shockwaves, or whatever those were. Coco added. It's a solid strategical attack as well, the barrage of shockwaves, to soften up the target and break through their guard, then finish it off with a powerful slash from their claws when they're vulnerable, so they take the maximum damage. Ashbin analyzed. But this proves that kinship attacks can be varied or improved. This opens up the doors to any number of possibilities, potentially even entirely different moves from the original. Winter pointed out. Kuluyaku Explosion Razara was on the back of the egg thief as they rushed towards their Velociraptor opponent, when Naveru suddenly appeared running alongside them with an egg in his paws, which he then tossed to the raptor-like creature. The Kulu caught the egg, only to notice a fuse sticking out of it and realized it was a bomb. After a brief moment of panic fumbling the explosive, it caught it again and tossed it towards their enemy, detonating in the raptor's face. Everyone was quite surprised when they saw the familiar Palico with Razara instead of Teko. Isn't that Naveru? I thought he was Teko's partner, not Razara's? Iliad questioned. Well, I left to the New World specifically to get rid of him. I guess he's just destined to follow around a blade girl. Teko said nervously, shrinking away from her glaring sister. The cinnamon trio gulped when they saw Naveru tossing an egg to the egg eater. Please tell me they're not gonna use an innocent baby for an attack. RWBY pleaded. It wouldn't even be able to eat the egg. Even by Kulu standards, that's a waste. Hira agreed. What could they even do with that? The only thing I can think of would be breaking the egg over their enemy's head, but I doubt that would do much and just kill the poor embryo. Velvet added. However, they then saw the fuse and realized it was a bomb. Oh. Didn't see that coming. Roman said, before smirking. The old switcheroo. A classic in the criminal world. He added approvingly. Then, most of them couldn't help but laugh as the bird wyvern panicked before it threw the bomb at the other raptor. I guess Kulu didn't see it coming either. Yang laughed. Still, hitting them with a bomb is way better than hitting them with an egg. I applaud. Nora declared, applauding like she said. Pukei venom surprise. The poison bewitching bird let out a loud roar as its tail began to greatly swell with poison, to the point the deadly liquid could be seen glowing through the skin, which looked like it was about to burst. Finally, the tail shot a great amount of poison into the air like a fire hose as the Pukei snaked its tail around so the poison would spread as far as possible. Soon, dark purple storm clouds began to appear as a drop of poison hit the Pukei's head, followed by countless others. The gluttonous gullet used its tongue to form a makeshift umbrella to protect Teko from the poison, while the unfortunate was Keiza drenched in poison. Raining poison. That sounds like something you'd hear in a death metal song or something. Emerald said. Still, you can't deny it's effective, high toxic and possibly corrosive poison raining down from the sky? I don't see a lot of things surviving that. And if they do, they'll definitely be weaker and easier to take down. Hazel analyzed. That and it's super cool. Poison's already scary enough, but making it rain poison, your opponent knowing they can't escape? That's a new level of screwed. It's so cool, Neo said with a smirk. Still, it's nice to see that it shields its rider from the poison. Very sweet, you can clearly tell that it cares for its rider, Penny said with a smile. Yeah, I guess it's not so bad after all, RWBY admitted. Avinia, ground cyclone. Filler, a young blonde girl rode on her Barioth in the middle of a blizzard as the ice tusk wyvern flew over the Tigrex they were facing. Okay, Frostfang, she called out to her monster, who reared its head back and began powering up frozen energy in its mouth. Now, the girl declared as the saber-toothed beast fired a beam of ice from its mouth down at the ground, creating a huge trail of ice spikes towards their enemy, which then shattered into a tornado of ice. Within this tornado, the girl and her Barioth flew after their enemy, the girl shouting in determination as the Barioth let out a mighty roar as they slammed into their enemy, sending it to the ground. Whoa! Girl's got guts, flying through a tornado like that, even if her monster made it. Crow praised. Bold strategy as well, crashing down on their opponent like that. A lot of ways it could go wrong. So they know what they're doing to make it go right. Adam added. Well, we've seen that Barioth is pretty bulky, so that probably helps things out a bit. And considering it can roll around with Bambaro like nothing, it's safe to say it's pretty durable, Blake pointed out. And, again, it's another strategic move. First dealing damage with the ice spikes, then creating confusion and chaos with the ice tornado, before finishing off with massive damage from the slam. She's taking apart the opponent piece by piece. Very effective. Cinder praised as well. Payalyamut jet balloon. Balls of pollen floated through the air as a Payalyamut drifted through the air in its sleep, its neck fully inflated as it floated through the air, upside down with Rosara and Navarro laying on top of the balloon-like neck. Suddenly, a tiny and adorable bird flew by the floating sky wyvern's nose, causing the creature to let out a massive sneeze, sending them flying uncontrollably through the air at insane speeds, before coming down at insane speeds to slam into an unfortunate Anjanath. Many of the teens cooed at the sight before them. It's so precious. Especially floating upside down. Weiss gushed over the scene. I totally want to do that, RWBY said, getting nods from Nora, Velvet, Emerald, Weiss, Summer, and Neo. It would be the softest bed ever. And you would feel completely weightless, like you were the one floating through the air, Glinda said dreamily. I'm more concerned with the fact you decided to fall asleep in the middle of the battle, Ironwood said. I stay up really late, okay? It's amazing I'm not constantly falling asleep. Rosara defended herself. Then, they all burst out laughed as Payalyamut went flying like crazy. It's like a deflating balloon. Ilya laughed. I mean, isn't that essentially what it is? Roman questioned. Oh, man, I'm glad that's not me. I'd never survive that with my motion sickness, John said. Well, at least it was effective. I doubt the Anjanath saw that coming, Ren noted. That would be so much fun, RWBY cried out. I know, right? It's like a roller coaster without a track. That's the wildest ride ever, Nora agreed. Reverto, Dragon Tremor Slash. A handsome blonde hunter ran towards a Diablos in the desert, dragging his greatsword along the ground as he ran, preparing to strike, creating sparks and igniting the blade. The hunter then slammed his blade into the ground and used his momentum to pole vault over his weapon, pulling the greatsword free of the ground and flying towards his target. This might hurt, he declared, bringing the burning blade down with all the power he could muster, slashing the beast with such force, it looked as though he had split reality itself in half, resulting in a huge explosion that knocked the desert tyrant down. Whoa! That sword is huge, John said. Guy's got guts to charge at a Diablos like that. Crow added. And look, he's dragging his blade on the ground, but it's not slowing him down at all. Pyrrha pointed out. Did he just pole vault over the sword? That's insane. Emerald cried out. Not to mention counterintuitive. Surely he's lost serious momentum on the initial swing, so vaulting into the air with a heavy sword with already reduced momentum will likely greatly slow and weigh him down. He may not even reach the Diablos. Penny added. Then, they saw the final slash and, needless to say, they were shocked. I am sorry, I think my sunglasses are too dark for this room. Did he just split reality? Coco asked, taking off her glasses in shock. Yeah, Penny? I don't think he was slowed or weighed down any. That was still really effective. Velvet said in shock. Well, obviously. He created an explosion by swinging his sword. Neo cried out. Tobi Kadachi Fury. In a massive, dense forest, the Tobi Kadachi rapidly sprinted down a massive tree with Razara on its back. After a few moments, the creature built up enough charge for its fur to glow and stand on end. It then leapt off the tree and extended its arms to deploy its membranes to glide. Eventually, it reached its target and delivered a devastating downward slash fueled by electricity, knocking down the Rathian they faced. Yay! We're seeing Tobi again. RWBY cheered. And it's doing another awesome electric attack. Nora cried out. I mean, it's a cool-looking move and all, but it doesn't seem too different from what Tobi normally does, compared to a lot of the others. Blake noted. Well, it likely brushed against many branches and leaves and pine needles as it ran down that tree, so it likely built up a decent level of static in order to fuel its electric attack. So it may not be as fancy as the others, the amount of electricity in the attack was likely incredibly debilitating. Ashbin analyzed. I must say, I'm also liking the deep forest this move takes place in as well. Ren noted, enjoying the background. If only I had taken the chance to pet the one Katana had brought in. I must get one when we return to Remnant. Winter told herself. Anjanath Anya Assault. This time a split screen showed both regular and Fulgur Anjanath being ridden by Razara and Tekko respectively, as the beasts came leaping out of the jungle. With one final, massive leap, the theropods leapt out of the jungle, plowing through a tree, before careening off a cliff and slamming into the ground in a massive elemental explosion of fire and thunder respectively. Then, the tyrannosaur-like monsters rushed forwards at devastating speeds, overflowing with the power of their element and slamming into their opponents, a Kongalala and Daimyo Hermitor respectively. That was awesome! All the students shouted. Jumping off a cliff with a T-Rex on fire. That is a new level of epic. I am so trying that. Yang cried out. You are not jumping off a cliff, young lady. T-Rex or not. Summer insisted. Glinda looked at the Rose Matriarch, questioningly. Summer? You do remember that the students are quite literally thrown off a cliff into the Emerald Forest for initiation, right? It's basically an average Tuesday for our students. She informed her friend, who glared at Ashbin, causing the headmaster to swallow a nervous lump in his throat. I wonder if we could use dust to add more fuel to the flames. Or my maiden powers? Cinder wondered. We knew they were strong, but it's another level to drag along the ground like that without slowing down at all. Hazel added. Kyle, meteor shower. A teenage boy with light blonde hair rushed forward as his ninja-like palico leapt into the air as the boy leapt off a cliff, drawing his bow and an arrow. However, as he plummeted from the cliff, he adjusted his grip to reveal he actually had 5 arrows in his hand, which he all readied into the bow. Tsukino. He called out to his partner. Understood. The palico acknowledged, tossing down some strange orange canister. The canister broke, resulting in its contents igniting the boy's arrows. The boy finally drew his arrows back after this. "I won't miss. Let's do it," he declared, launching the arrows, which flew and twisted through the air, before crashing down onto the rat halos the boy was hunting, resulting in a huge explosion as the young hunter executed a three-point landing. Impressive. It was smart to have his palico assist him like that. And whatever was in that canister gave those arrows quite an improvement. Even if it is stupid to fire 5 arrows at once. Adam praised. "Isn't that boy a bit young to be a full-fledged hunter?" "He looks to be younger than RWBY," Delvet asked in concern. "That's Kyle. He's a newbie hunter. His dad was part of a hunting party to destroy the egg of the raisewing rat halos, but he was injured by Guardian Ratha, the protector of the egg and Mehana village, a rider village where the hunter were without permission, before you draw any conclusions. So, to avenge his father even though he didn't die, he picked up his dad's duties to kill the raisewing after it hatched. I was friends with raisewing's rider, so I had to kick Kyle's butt a few times, but eventually we worked things out," Razara explained. "And why is this particular rat halos so important?" Penny questioned. "Well, depending on what it was exposed to as it grew, if it was surrounded by negativity, had the potential to be the destroyer of the world. And the hunters weren't willing to sit around and find out, so they invaded the sacred ground of the village, I can't stress that enough, to destroy the egg before it could hatch," Razara added. Many were shocked by this revelation, wondering how they themselves would have handled such a situation. While I can't defend them invading a village and its sacred land, the hunters had the right idea. Such a threat needs to be eliminated before it could ever become such a problem. And the boy should be commended for his dedication to his father and his mission," Ironwood said. "But it hadn't even hatched yet. It should have a fair chance at life, just like anyone else," RWBY insisted. "Okay, let's not get into any philosophical arguments. Kyle's heart is in the right place, he's a heck of a hunter for someone so young and his attack is cool. Let's move on," Katana said. Gammoth raging avalanche. Tekka rode on her Gammoth as it trudged through a blizzard, before the fanged beast suddenly reared onto its hind legs and let out a mighty trumpeting noise. It then came crashing down on the ice beneath it with a devastating stomp. This shattered the ice and created a massive shockwave that created an enormous avalanche that engulfed the Gammoth and its rider, along with their Tigrex opponent, only the latter coming under harm. They were amazed by the level of power the fanged beast showed. "Amazing," Ilias said. "I mean, it was cool, but I think we could all see that coming. That's a giant mammoth slamming down on all that ice. The avalanche was epic, but I still totally saw it coming once all that ice was shattered," Coco said. "Doesn't make it any less epic, though. They just stood there as all that snow washed over them." Total dominance assertion, Neo countered. "Yeah. I definitely wouldn't have been able to stay calm." John agreed. "Of course. What else would one expect from a monster I would partner with?" Weiss questioned, earning an eye roll from all the students and even her sister. Even Valka shook her head at her rider's antics. Legiana Icicle Realm. Razara was sailing through a frozen mountain area on her Legiana, the creature letting out a mighty cry as it flapped its wings and shot forward at blinding speeds, rotating in a way so its right wing glided along the ground, leaving a trail of razor-sharp icicles along the ground as it created a circle around the Fulgur Anjanath, the ice expanding to create a beautiful frozen glyph on the ground, looking like many spears aimed directly at the theropod. The Legiana then flew up high into the air while doing an aileron roll, coming to a stop high in the sky and holding its wings out with a mighty shriek, creating ice spears similar to that of the glyph on the ground, sending them raining down on the electric Anjanath, before shattering and pelting the beast with more ice chunks. That was beautiful, Pyrrha said in amazement. It made an entire ice cage. That is so cool, Ruby cried out. And all those ice spears are definitely going to hurt. Plus, shattering like that would be like shrapnel, dealing even more damage, Blake added. But the Shnees noticed something else, however. Winter, did you see that? Weiss asked. Yes. It looked like our glyphs, or our family crest. It's incredible how similar it was, Winter confirmed. Cheval, scorching slice. A red-haired boy in Azure Rat Halo's armor flew on the back of a Rathian towards their foes. Let's go, Roddy. He called to his partner, his shell-like necklace giving off a shine as they flew forward. Fire! He ordered, the queen of the land shooting a fireball from her mouth at the giant Garuda they faced, stunning it and allowing them to fly high into the air. They did an aileron roll as they ducked down, before righting themselves in the air. Take that! He declared as the Rathian did the normal flaming backflip. However, unlike normal, this resulted in 5 wheels of fire that all crashed into the black wolf bird. Whoa! That was awesome! They must have trained for a long time to be so much more advanced than the average rider, Summer said in amazement. Yeah, but I'm detecting some more emotional baggage here. Something to do with that necklace, Emerald pointed out. It belonged to his mother. There was an anomaly known as the Black Blight, which was basically a less lethal version of the Frenzy virus. Anarchakubek got infected and attacked Cheval's village, destroying his house and killing his mom. He went against the way of the riders after that and wanted to exterminate monsters, even while still keeping Roddy. Thankfully, I knocked some sense into him and he went back to being a great rider, Teko explained. Understandable. A loss like that would change anyone's life forever. But it's excellent to hear he was able to overcome his trauma and stop seeing these wonderful creatures as, well, monsters. You really should find a new word for them, Glinda said. Yeah. I've seen plenty of huntsmen lose themselves to a big tragedy like that, Crow agreed. But dang, he knows what he's doing to make 5 of those rings. I could see either the rushing in as the fire wheel or throwing them one at a time as projectiles, but 5 all at once like that is blowing my mind, he admitted. Mizutsun Moonlight Transients. Soapy bubbles drifted all through the air as a Mizutsun slid through a field at nighttime with Teko on its back. The Leviathan then swung its tail and sent a wave of soap and bubbles at the Xenogre they faced, trapping the Thunder Wolf Wyvern in a massive bubble. The Mizutsun then leapt high up into the air, to the point it was parallel with the center of the moon, at which point it fired a devastating beam of water at insane pressure, cutting through the field and causing the water to bubble and finally explode in a massive tornado of water and soap, sending the Xenogre to the ground. So majestic. The moon behind it looks incredible. And the light on the bubbles is breathtaking, Ren said in awe. All those bubbles look like so much fun. So would sliding through them like that, Nora cried out. They are really pretty. And the suds along Mizutsun looked neat, too. I think it'd be neat to be in that big bubble, too, Ruby added. And it was genius to use the reaction of the soap to create that water spout for the attack. Creating an event like that to deal damage is something I would have never thought of, but I can't deny its effectiveness, Ironwood said. Nergigant Decimating Fist. The Eater of Elders let out a thunderous roar as it descended towards the ground, it and Rizara making a punching motion. It then slammed into the ground and dragged its fist along the ground as it flew forward at insane speeds, letting out another roar as its fist soon ignited, leaving a massive trail of fire behind them as they approached a Kushala Deora. A mountain was then shown, before it was filled with cracks, becoming heated up to become orange hot, before it was completely obliterated by the Nergigant bursting through it and letting out another roar, grinding its fist to generate heat, just like Monoblos with its horn. Quite clever. Still, I can't say I expected it to burst through a cliff, Ashban admitted. But at least Monoblos used its horn. I can't imagine grinding your fist on the ground like that. I hope Nergi's regeneration is as good as it's been made out to be, because that's gotta hurt. Crow said. That's what makes it so awesome. Yang cheered. I know, right? Nergigant looked like a superhero going for the final blow. John said. Totally. And breaking through the mountain makes it look even better. It's like it's posing for a poster or something. RWBY added. Astalos pulse. Something was moving through total darkness at great speeds, before green lightning created a flash, revealing the silhouette of Tekko and her Astalos, a dome of green electricity then appearing rushing towards their opponent, several more flashes showing the monster and its rider in the center of the dome, before unleashing it on the Glavenus they were facing, trapping it in the center of the dome, before flying super high into the air and charging electricity to the point its eyes and wings were glowing, with an orb of electricity at the tip of its tail. It then let out a furious screech, before dive-bombing its opponent and slamming the electric orb at the end of its tail into the dome, creating a massive impact and even a miniature black hole that resulted in an enormous electrical explosion. The green lightning is so cool. Nora cheered. I like how it keeps getting closer with each flash while moving through the darkness. It's like something I would do. Blake said with a smile. I think it's just cool to see Astalos again. John said. Indeed. A lot of us weren't here when you saw the Fated Four, so it's nice to get a good view of it now. And I like what I see. Adam added. Yeah, I think a few of us probably have Astalos on our monster wish list. Yang admitted. Have we asked how many monsters we're allowed to have before? Cinder asked. Well, technically, you can have as many as you want. Katana said, pulling her daughters in close, despite their protests. These brats have one of each, but they usually only keep 6 with them on any mission they go out and do. But ultimately, they're just like regular pets, you should only have as many as you can comfortably afford, both in terms of food necessities and time to spend with them. She explained. Elwyn Icicle Realm. A white-haired Wyverian rider flew on his Legiana much like Rosara had done previously. Now, shock. He called to his partner, the two mostly recreating the attack Rosara had done up to raining down ice spears onto the opponent. This time, however, the rider and monster dive-bombed the Xenogre they faced. Taste the chill of icy fangs. The Wyverian declared as they were glowing with icy energy before slamming down on their opponent, creating an explosion of ice. I mean, we already saw it from Rosara, but it's still pretty cool to see here. Ilias said. True, but this man's willing to go the extra mile by dive-bombing the opponent. That takes determination and bravery. Not many people would be willing to do that. Hazel pointed out. I'm surprised his Legiana survived that, though. They aren't quite as bulky as Betelgeuse. Penny pointed out. Well, we have seen that they have some flying tackle attacks or other attacks where they slam into their target. Plus, it appeared to be making some armor for itself with ice, so that likely cushioned the blow. Hira theorized. Betelgeuse, Nova Strike. The bomber Wyvern soared high in the air above the clouds as Rosara and Naveru scouted the area below with binoculars. Suddenly, the two passengers spotted their target and the Betelgeuse let out a furious roar before priming itself and its scales, dropping them en masse on a deviljo below them, leaving nowhere for the violent wyvern to go, before they circled back around and descended to the ground, flying while dragging across the surface of the ground, igniting all the scales they had left behind, before finally slamming into the deviljo, resulting in a massive explosion. Bombs away! Nora yelled with a huge grin as she saw the scales dropping. Yes! Explosions! Ruby and Young cheered together as the scales began to detonate. Sometimes you just can't beat the sheer simple, yet beautiful destruction of an explosive. Roman said wistfully. Truly, they are works of art. Neo agreed. I get Betelgeuse is insulated against explosions, but you guys are brave to be that close to all those exploding scales. Summer told the demon girls. Basil's pretty big, it puts a good distance between us and the explosions. Rosara said dismissively. Velcana, Calamity Glacier. The Velcana flew across the ground at blinding speeds, all while creating a gust of freezing wind that froze a small herd of unfortunate Afghanov, circling around the Teostra it was facing, creating a full-on blizzard while doing so, as well as creating its ice armor for itself and Teko. It then unleashed a beam of ice from its mouth that created several small plateaus of ice, culminating in one mountainous ice tower that raised the Teostra almost into the clouds. The Veljana still flew above this tower and let out a roar, the blizzard clouds parting to reveal a massive ice meteor that came crashing down on the Teostra and the ice tower, resulting in an explosion that sent the tower and the Teostra crumbling down to the ground. Whoa! It's like it's starting a whole new ice age. Neo cried out. Then they saw it make a literal mountain of ice. No way. We always knew elder dragons were on another level, but this is insane. Winter said in awe. And then, they bore witness to the ice meteor, which caused Weiss to have stars in her eyes. Incredible! To create such a massive ice construct, it would need unrivaled sub-zero temperatures to be able to form it that fast at such altitudes where there is likely little moisture in the air. This can only mean that it somehow condensed enough moisture in that snowstorm and pulled it together in a mere instant to create it. The level of energy required for that is practically unfathomable. She cried out, leaving everyone surprised at first, but then many of them couldn't help but giggle. Wow, Weiss. You had a RWBY moment. Blake told her. Yeah. You look just like I do whenever I see a cool weapon or an awesome monster. RWBY agreed. Weiss blushed madly at this. S8 shut up. She huffed. Palamute rising axle. Rosara rode on the back of her beast up a giant mountain at great speeds, the beast even running along the side of a cliff, before suddenly readying a double-bladed knife in its mouth. The dog-like creature then picked up an enormous burst of speed, appearing to be surrounded by fire as it ran along the cliff wall, before launching itself high into the air, before unleashing a slash that sent a devastating energy wave down at the Astalos they were facing, causing an enormous explosion as they landed safely in the distance, the Palamute howling proudly. There are monster dogs? Many of the students asked excitedly. Yep. They're called Palamutes. They're basically dog versions of palicos, although they aren't sentient like palicos, but they are smart enough to use weapons. And they're big and strong enough for people to ride. Katana explained. Oh, come on. Blake complained. Still, that athletic ability is incredible. Ironwood said, amazed. I'll say. It's running on a freaking wall. Crow pointed out. And they must be incredibly fast to get that far away from the explosion that fast. Glinda pointed out. Special double kinship Oblivion of Ice Teko and Rosara faced off against none other than the Titanic Kulf Taroth, looking at each other from the backs of Elegiana and Barioth, respectively. You up for this, brat? Rizara questioned her little sister. The younger ice demon rolled her eyes at her sister's jab, but nodded. I was born ready. Let's do this. She declared, their monsters entering their full power states and flying forward, before pulling up and flying sky high. As they did, the two ice monsters fired beams of ice from their mouths, their riders adding to the attack with beams of ice from their hands, culminating in a massive orb of ice element above the team. Finally, once enough power had been built up, the monsters launched the ice meteor down on their opponent, resulting in a massive explosion of ice. Whoa! You two are awesome! Coco praised. Yeah. You and your monsters really kicked some ICE. Yang said, causing everyone to groan. Katana wiped a tear from her eye. It's so nice to see my girls working together, she said, pulling her daughters in for a hug, much to their protests. And it's nice to see you actually lending support to your monsters in this one. Most of the others still had the monster doing all the work. Velvet said. Would any pair of riders do that with their ice monsters? Ashbin asked. Well, any two that can fly, but any two monsters of the same element would be able to do something similar. But even two completely random monsters rushing in at an enemy would still make a nice explosion. Rizara explained. Yeah. Explosions for the win. Teko cheered. These monsters really are incredible. If enough huntsmen and huntresses are willing to team up with them, the Grimm won't stand a chance. Summer said with a smile while running her hand down Amaryllis. You guys know the drill. What did you think? Katana asked. It was awesome. All of those attacks were so cool. Ruby cried out. And it was nice that more of us got to see our monsters in action. Ren added. Plus, even the ones that didn't feature our monsters could still be useful as ideas we could try. Cinder said. And the new twists from those other riders showed us we could put a unique twist on the kinship moves, so that means we can, too. Maybe we could even help out our monsters with some attacks. Velvet threw in. Not to mention those two hunters. Both of them were pretty cool. We need to come up with some of our own epic moves like that. Yang added. So, what comes next? John asked. Well, you remember the monster that fought against Dicipheroa, right? Katana questioned. You mean Shantian? How could we forget? It was so awesome and beautiful. Velvet said. Absolutely stunning. And incredibly powerful if it could contend with Dicipheroa, even if it lost. Winter agreed. Exactly. Well, I'm glad you're all already fans of it, because it's up next. Katana said, starting the video.